Welcome to Happily Ever After, the podcast where we talk about life's big stories, from breakups and breakdowns to icky secrets and happy endings. It's the stuff that makes us human. I'm your host, Hannah Harvey. I'm a writer and a parenting blogger at mumsdays.com. I'd be really grateful if you could subscribe and leave a review because it basically means more people can find the podcast. And I also absolutely love hearing from you, so please do contact me through Instagram at mumsdays, MUMSDAYS, with any of your stories and any thoughts you might have on the episode or any questions. You can find all the details from this episode in the show notes. Hello and welcome to Happily Ever After. It's me, Hannah, and today I'm joined by my longtime blogging friend, Penny. And I say a long-time blogging friend. It was basically, I was your fangirl for quite some time.
Oh.
Hello, Penny.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, no, thank you for coming on. I think I asked you about 2 years ago. And you were like, I am not ready for that yet.
Now it feels like a really good time. So yes.
Good. So back in the day, when I first got to know you, I was like, I think I'd been blogging for about 2 years and I started coming along to events. And I seem to recall that you'd done something really cool with your blog to make you go like properly pro, and you were making money and working with...
My first blog was called A Residence or Alexander Residence at one point. I sold it to Wayfair, the home store, which
That's
was
right.
a really bizarre move on their part, but I carried on writing for them for 3 years, I think. And then I had another blog, Parent Shake, which was a travel blog, which just
That's right.
Keep going.
I went to see you speak on that.
Yes, at Brit Mums.
Yes, you did a seminar, and I remember going along to that and being like, whoa, I'd love to be doing stuff like that.
Yeah, no, it was exciting times, wasn't it? It was like, I think we all came into it sort of, it's like the Wild West, and like all sorts of exciting things were happening. And we'd all just got into it in a really exciting time.
And then I sort of disappeared from blogging. Did you keep going?
I did until about, I think it was just sort of before COVID, and other sort of projects started to take over, and gradually sort of, it felt like a different place when I left.
Well, when I came back, I was like, what has happened? I do not know how to do the internet anymore.
No, I think, in the time, I've done it for about a decade, and, in that time, people had actually had, jobs in social media and learned how to do it professionally. And they come up with these amazing sort of projects, and social media just exploded, didn't it? As well.
Yeah.
It was only Twitter when I started.
I feel like I missed the boat on the whole Instagram thing. That seemed to massively take off over lockdown, and I just wasn't engaged in it. And when I came back, people that were sort of around the same level of me had suddenly gone to like hundreds of thousands of followers, and I was like, whoa, this has changed.
And it just became, for me, too many things to juggle,
It still feels a bit like that. I'm like, which thing am I meant to be focusing on? And
but podcasting as well, that's really exciting.
I mean, I always wanted to do this, so it was nice to have an excuse and just be like, do you know what, I'm just gonna have a go and see where it takes me. And nicely, it led me back to connecting with you.
I know, it was, it's so funny that, not funny, but all of our blogs were so much about family life, and now I'm connecting with people who are divorced more than...
So that's it, wasn't it? You'd listened to some of my podcasts and reached out because you were basically in exactly the same stages as me in terms of your divorce. And it seemed to take exactly the same amount of time for similar sort of reasons. So it was like such a weird connect that we made over that. So do you mind sharing a bit? I mean, obviously you don't need to go to warts and alls and who did what, but the kind of context around your divorce.
We had I'd been married for 15 years, together for 22 years when we divorced. The kids were 11 and 13 then. They're 15 and 17 now.
Wow.
Feels like a long time, but also no time. And yeah, it was in the midst of COVID. So that was particularly tricky.
Oh, it's awful, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So did you leave the family home, or did your ex?
Well, we were in the midst of moving. We had bought another house because after I sort of quit blogging, we were running holiday lets, and the holiday lets were in the house that I used to live in. But we decided sort of to move away from that. And so, but then, I mean, we were left in this nice position where it's like one of us, well, it wasn't a nice position at all at the time, but one of us could stay and one of us could go into the new house. I chose. It took me so long to make that decision. Those decisions just feel, those tiniest or big decisions feel just horribly unsurmountable at the time. But I chose to go with new, which was a really positive decision for me, location-wise, and also just having a clean slate. And also, it was stressful as well. We were in the middle of this renovation, and I'd been project managing it, and I literally down tools for 3 weeks and had a bit of a breakdown. But my builder, I'd been working with him for a long time, and he just sort of said, look, here's a paintbrush. This will help with your mental health. And yeah, I literally did some of the most boring jobs on this house, but I look at kind of skirting boards and I look at...
I painted that bad boy.
I painted that, yeah. Or I scrubbed that and I was scrubbing away,
Yeah,
stuff.
I think when it's so overwhelming, relying back on kind of mundane tasks were like just relief.
Yeah. No, and it is. I did a lot of CBT, and that takes you... I've had so much therapy, but that takes you right back to just the most mundane tasks that you need to do for the day, and tick boxes, and little hits of dopamine from getting simple things done. But,
yeah, definitely. Like, take it back to the process, not the end goal, because it changes all the time as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, I feel like the age of your children would have been really tricky. Mine were quite a bit younger.
Yeah, my son was 11 and just literally 2 weeks off starting high school in between the two lockdowns. It was horrendous for him, and it went really badly. I had to deal with them with school refusal for a couple of years, but I mean, actually, he's doing brilliantly now, and amazes me, me. I think children do. People said to me, kids will blame themselves, and they do.
Yeah.
And I didn't even realise that was going on, and I had to sort of sit down and have some really quite radically honest conversations with them and say, no, it's not you. But yeah, it was tough at the time. But also now I look at it, and I've said to a lot of friends who are divorced, and that, and there may well be repercussions later. You never know with parenting, but I feel that I'm able to parent them in a way that's kind of radically honest, that really lets them see, how I've put myself back together, how when I fall apart or when things are difficult, I'm quite honest with them now, and they see that. I know, watching my parents, I think watching them deal with grief, I don't think they were ever that. They hid a lot from me.
Yeah.
And that pain. And now as they've got older, I think because they are older, it's allowed me to be honest in a way that's taught them a lot. And I see that now, and it's incredible to watch the levels of sort of understanding, the vocabulary they have around mental health, around sort of being compassionate about understanding and difficult situations. It's incredible.
Yeah.
And I've said that to many people as a real can be a real positive. And because I think they get a lot of, we co-parent 50-50, they are always with one parent who's giving them, you know, a lot of attention. They're not caught in between two parents that they really appreciate.
Yeah.
So
You haven't got one
that's
parent who's run ragged trying to do it
yeah,
all on their own, and then
yeah,
get to go to the other one and get spoiled rotten because it's not enough time.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, there are absolute positives. I mean, it was a nightmare at the time. And, a difficult storm, you see, but you know, actually, I think they've come out with some incredible positives.
Yeah, it's what you've said there's reminded me of. I remember being like maybe 3 or 4 and seeing my mum cry. I think a friend had died or something like that. I'm not even sure what it was, but just being like, "Oh my God!"
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
we just you generally just didn't see your parents ever be upset. Like that was kind of the way we were taught to parent. And I think I remember quite a few people, like reading a few things about people saying, "Oh, I'd cry in the shower and I'd try and keep that away from them." But then on the other side, I was told by a child therapist that you should show them when you're upset,
yeah,
like let them actually experience you being upset as well, and talking it through. And so there's this conflict of like, well, how much do I allow them to see my grieving process?
yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I think there's a really dangerous thing around divorce, particularly for women. It's quite patriarchal that, you know, that women hide it all from the children, and sometimes that involves hiding men's bad behaviour as well, and not being sort of honest, and that can become incredibly poisonous because you're you know you there's this cognitive dissonance for them. You know, they can tell something's wrong,
Yeah.
and that's when children can really start to sort of to blame themselves, I think. So radical honesty about, as my children have got older, has actually been really healing for us. And I think, you know, I'm able to be more real, more authentic with them because I'm honest about, you know, some of the things that have happened that weren't okay. And I mean, I lost my dad about 4 months after we separated. So, you know, I've constantly had this comparison and that, you know, I'd lost my mum about 10 years before that. So it was a bit like, what the hell is going on? Universe, why are you sending me all this at once? You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, grieving for parents and grieving for a divorce, a relationship, very, very, very different processes.
Oh,
But
really?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I mean, obviously, I know that with you know, when your relationship ends and you don't necessarily want it to, it can feel like grief, but it's obviously not the same as physically losing someone and you
yeah.
can't
I
ever
think
speak
it's
to them
just
again.
well, for me anyway, there's a finality when somebody dies. There's a it's the end of love, but that wasn't the case with my separation. You know, there's a lot of very difficult feelings and a lot of things that aren't resolved. But I think in showing, I think bereavement taught me a lot about, you know, dealing with difficult situations.
Mm-hmm.
But still, totally different process to divorce.
Yeah. I
Mm.
think the main thing with divorce is that there's a conflict.
Yeah, yeah,
So you're really sad about something ending, but you're also in the midst of a battle in some
yeah,
ways.
yeah. And sadly, you know, regardless of, I mean, every divorce is so different, and that's something I've discovered. You know, lots of people have come to me and asked for advice, and I've been like, well, I think you'd be better talking to my ex than talking to me. Our situation is so different, or you know, or actually, what you're telling me is really triggering for me. Every
Yeah.
divorce is so different. Um, but yeah, yeah. Now I've forgotten what I was saying. Now I've gone off on a tangent.
Well, I was just about to ask you what you thought the hardest thing about your divorce was.
Timing, because of COVID, because of my dad, because of in the midst of renovating a house, although that turned out to have a silver lining. I'd also fallen out of working because, no, I hadn't. I mean, we were running self-catering properties, but that had to stop because of COVID. And I'd stopped my blog because Children's Dad was travelling so much, and I'd sort of lost love with it, and I was focused on the Airbnbs, and I just thought, oh God, suddenly my whole life, everything, I was an orphan, I was divorced, I was in a new home, I didn't know what I wanted to do for work, everything just sort of went. And that was really, really, in the midst of COVID as well, when you can't just, it was really hard work at times just to arrange support or to get people, to be with you. Was pretty miserable. But and yeah, the impact on my mental health was phenomenal. I'm still battling with that now. I can be absolutely fine with things on a this is happening present level, rational level. Rational Penny's like, yeah, that's fine, that's okay. That's water under the bridge. But the part of your brain that has been traumatised will not let that go. And
like the slightest triggers. I'm still caught out. I'm like, why is that triggering me?
Yeah. And it's learning to, and it's sneaky as well, like the brain. I've learned so much about the brain, and I'll go, yeah, no, I'm fine with that, that's okay. And then a couple of weeks later, I'll be like, why am I struggling to do even the stupidest little things today? Why am I angry? Why? And yeah, it's just having to sit with all those emotions. And I, still go to therapy just to keep on top of it all. But I'll sit there and I'll be like, why am I doing this again? Why am I going through this again?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I having to keep processing?
Why are we?
Yeah.
What is it? Is it maybe just personality types, or?
I think for me it was a lot of trauma in one go.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, there you go. I think the more trauma...
no, but I think I've learned I am a massive try and think my way out. And actually I've done lots of stuff I've done sort of somatic experiencing, which I know you've done as well, haven't you?
Yeah. I'd love to hear a little bit about the kind of the route you took for recovery.
Yeah.
And the kind of things you did.
I had a really good friend did some Reiki with me, and she said, go and find somebody else who can do it when you go home, because she was in London, and then I found Helen Craven locally, and I've had Reiki, and that I've become much more spiritual, as I know you have, and that was really powerful. I did some work with Rachel Smithbone, who you've had on the podcast.
Yeah, what did you do with Rachel?
We did some incredible sort of ceremony, sort of one-to-one stuff, just around releasing and letting go of different things, and absolutely bonkers stuff. But
she's
when
crazy.
I describe it to other people, but really powerful, really powerful. And I had a really lovely ceremony myself. So my birthday last year, invited people from all different areas of my life. I think friends have been one of the most healing things, and I've still got a best friend from school, and a lovely gang from university days, and didn't think I wanted to stay here. I hadn't been here very long when we separated, but lots of amazing people have come into my life, and just had sort of 15 people from different areas of my life sat around bonfire, having some cacao, and just sort of being a bit grateful for that female influence in my life. I think you do realise that women are these friends that have been the true loves of my life have been there through thick and thin, and really, really magical stuff.
That's amazing. So you have kindly agreed to come and do a second episode, because I want to talk about sort of the moving on process, I guess, because you get, this surviving divorce is one thing, but what happens once it's all over? Like, we've got all these opportunities, and obviously opportunities are terrifying as well as amazing.
Yes, just writing that very thing down.
Yeah. So we'll come back and talk about that. But in terms of finishing off this, if you could go back to like yourself at the beginning of your divorce, like what would you say to yourself now that you've been through it? Have you got any sort of points and tips?
I think the biggest thing is compassion, the self-compassion. And
It's so hard.
Yeah, it really is. And weirdly, I think the universe has just sent me, and I do find the synchronicity sometimes quite remarkable, the things that have happened since. And I look at it and just think, my life was always quite da 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 da, and then suddenly everything blew up.
Yeah.
What is that about? Compassion. A friend that came into my life as a clinical psychologist has become a really good friend and introduced me to the work of Paul Gilbert. And I've got this amazing app called the Self-Compassion app. And
oh my God, I need that.
Yeah, I keep telling people about it. It's by Chris Irons and Elaine Beaumont, just to plug them. But
I've got their massive book.
Have you?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's from the book, but now this is an app. But it's very much Derbyshire based. I think a lot of the work's done at the university under Paul Gilbert. But it is incredible if you can really sort of focus, and I would beat myself up on things like timelines, on not being able to do stuff, like why am I not further ahead? Why have I not sorted this out? Why am I getting stressed over this? Why am I, constant.
That's where I live.
Critical voice.
Yeah.
The therapist said that to me, why are you so self-critical? And that's a scar and a wound from it all, but learning to be compassionate, I think compassion-focused therapy is definitely been the way to go in terms of just trying to talk to myself in a much more, encouraging, compassionate way.
Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with a really tricky brain and realising that our brains are tricky because they're, go back thousands and thousands of years and we're still stuck with brains that are trying to protect us from, tigers and... Yeah. So understanding yourself has been a huge lesson. I put radical self-care, whatever that means to you. I think a lot of people panic, are the kids going to be all right? But if you're not, it's about putting your own oxygen mask on, isn't it? If you're all right, they're going to be all right. So you do have to be quite radical and quite selfish in your self-care and whatever that means to you. I know, I was thinking we're both wearing orange today and we both had Katie do our colours, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, that's another thing. But just, that was lovely, thinking about my style, thinking about my home, thinking about how I want things to be, whether it's sort of treatments, beauty treatments, whether it's Reiki, whether it's therapy, all of that self-care is huge.
Yeah, like the hard things as well as the nice things.
Yeah.
It's such a tricky thing to deal with because, loads of people talk about using gratitude, like write a gratitude list. But for me, when I write a gratitude list, it can become a stick to beat myself with. Like, why are you not doing better? You've got all these amazing things. You should be achieving more and doing more and all that kind of stuff. So you have to be so careful with all of that. And just try and treat yourself as like the little version of you.
No, absolutely. And I think, if you've been in a relationship for a very long time and you've been relying on somebody else to sort of validate you, to support you, and we quite easily fall into that trap, especially when you've got kids and you're busy and you forget to sort of do all of that, and it's relearning how to do it all for yourself. And I mean, I got into my relationship in my early 20s and I'd come straight out of university and not really spent a lot of time really looking after myself or being completely independent. So it's comes back to haunt you, I think, if you don't.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Penny.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
We'll talk again very soon about moving on.
Look forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right then, thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time for another episode of Happily Ever After with me, Hannah Harvey. It would be wonderful if you could leave a review and subscribe. And of course, if you have a friend who might enjoy this episode, please do pass it on. For anything else, you can get in touch with me either through Instagram @mumsdays or my website mumsdays.com.